In this video, we will be covering working with samples from the user perspective in FreezerPro. Note that the user role in the system is the lowest ranked role that permits a user to work with samples. This tutorial will take place primarily in the main navigation panel on the left-hand side of the user interface and in the main view window. To begin, we will first open a box. There are many actions that can be performed when working with samples: creating samples, deleting samples, and editing samples, as well as changing sample volumes, copying and pasting samples, removing samples from freezers and restoring samples to freezers, setting sample alerts, printing barcodes for samples, adding samples to pick lists, pasting copies of samples as new samples, creating derivatives, and cutting and pasting samples to new wells and locations. The most common action in the system is creating a sample. One of the simplest ways to do so is to select an empty well and then select one of the available sample types in the right side menu bar. When a sample type is selected, the Add New Sample window will appear. This is where the sample's information will be recorded. To record the sample name, description, volume, and other necessary fields, simply enter the respective information into the corresponding text boxes. If any user-defined fields require data, you may enter them as well. Once the sample information has been recorded, you may finalize the addition of the new sample by selecting the Add button. A sample can quickly be deleted in the box view. To delete a sample, simply select it and then select the trash can tool on the right-hand toolbar. You may enter any comments in the confirmation window and then confirm the deletion by selecting Yes. You may also delete a sample by right-clicking on it and selecting the Delete Sample tool, or by dragging it to the trash can at the bottom right corner of the user interface. A sample can also be quickly edited at any time in the box view as well. To edit a sample, you may simply double-click on it to bring up the sample editing window. Alternatively, you may select a sample and select the Edit tool in the right-hand toolbar. When in the editing window, you may make any changes to the sample's information and then submit your changes by selecting the Save button. If at any time you would like to quickly change a sample's total volume, you may select the volume link in the information panel on the right-hand side. By doing so, you will be prompted with an Update Volume window. You may enter the sample's new total volume and enter any optional comments. Once you have done so, you may finalize the change by selecting the Save button. Duplicating samples is very easy with the copy and paste functions. To copy a sample, first select it in the box. Next, right-click on it and select the Copy function. Alternatively, you may select the Copy tool in the right side toolbar. You will then be prompted by the system that your sample has been placed on your clipboard. To paste a copy of the sample, select a new well, right-click, and select the Paste option. It is also possible to copy and paste multiple samples at a time. To do so, select multiple samples by holding the Shift key and selecting your samples in your box. Next, you must select the corresponding number of empty wells as you selected samples. If you selected 5 samples, you must select 5 empty wells. Right-click on one of the multiple wells you selected and choose the Paste option to paste your sample copies. You may also wish to create duplicates of a sample but not aliquots. In order to do this, you may use the Paste as New Sample tool instead of the Paste tool. The Paste as New Sample tool will create a new sample with a new UID but with the same information as the copied sample. Another useful tool is for creating derivatives. This tool is useful for when you are working with samples and need to enter the same information of a sample for a different sample type. To create a derivative, first select your desired sample and copy it. Next, select an empty well, right-click, and select the Create Derivative tool. You may then select the sample type of your derivative, choose to create it as a unique sample, copy the user-defined fields, give it an initial volume, and any optional comments. When you have finished creating your derivative, you may finalize it by selecting the Save button. Also, instead of copying and pasting a sample, you may wish to simply move a sample. To achieve this functionality, you may use the Cut and Paste tools instead. For further details on moving samples, please see the Moving Samples video tutorial. If you need to remove a sample from the freezer, for example if you intend to perform work on it, there is a function in FreezerPro to do so. Note that removing a sample is not the same as deleting a sample. When a sample is removed from a freezer, its position in the box is still reserved so that the sample may be returned at a later time. When a sample is deleted, it is permanently removed from the storage container. You may remove a sample from a freezer by selecting it in the box and then selecting the Remove from Freezer tool in the right side toolbar. You may enter a sample back into the freezer in the same way, only by using the Return to Freezer tool in the toolbar. Note that each time you remove a sample from the freezer, its freeze-thaw cycle count is increased by 1. While working with samples, it may be important to keep track of specific samples, knowing when they have low volumes or high freeze-thaw cycle counts. To keep track of this, you may use sample alerts. For details on managing sample alerts, please see the Working with Sample Alerts video tutorial. You may also print barcodes for your samples should you have access to a printer by selecting a sample in the box and selecting the Print tool in the toolbar. For complete details on printing barcodes and RFID tags, please see the Printing Barcodes video tutorial. One of the last options when working with samples is to add samples to a pick list. Pick lists behave as favorites folders and are a great way to keep track of most of your important samples. It is recommended to keep samples that are used very often grouped into specific pick lists so that you may locate them in the system quickly and easily. To create a pick list, first select a sample, right-click on it, and select the New Pick List option under the Add to Pick List tool. You may then give your new pick list a name. To add your sample to your new pick list, right-click on it again and choose your pick list under the Add to Pick List tool. You may view your pick list in the Samples, Groups, and Sources section under the My Pick List tab. Samples may be added to multiple pick lists at a time and can be accessed by clicking on them in the list view of a pick list. This concludes the Power User Working with Samples video tutorial. Up next, we will discuss viewing all sample locations. To review, samples can be created in the box view by selecting an empty well and then selecting an available sample type in the toolbar. Samples can be cut, copied, and pasted. You may create derivatives of samples with the Derivative tool. And you may use pick lists to keep track of your most important samples.